The hum of the engine room was the only thing keeping Jace Cartwright grounded. The soft, rhythmic thrum of the ship's core was something familiar, a constant in the chaos of interstellar life. He ran diagnostics, his fingers flying across the console. Today, he needed that peace more than ever. The station felt off. "Did you hear about Colintra?" came a voice from behind him. Jace didn't bother turning around. It was always something about Colintra. His boss, the imposing alien leader of the engineering department, was the kind of presence that made you feel small. It wasn't just her height, her dark emerald skin, or the fact that her eyes glowed faintly in dim light. No, it was the way she carried herself, like a queen in a kingdom of duct tape and cooling units. "Not my business," Jace muttered, still focused on the screen, but the voice, belonging to Rick, the station's designated gossip, didn't give up. "Well, it is your business when she's entered her, her mating period," that got Jace's attention. He turned slowly, arching an eyebrow. "You're joking," Rick leaned in, eyes wide with a mix of fear and fascination. "No joke, man. I just came from the control deck. She's already locked herself in her office. Mood swings, pheromones, the whole 9 yards. They're saying her pheromones could make half the staff lose their minds," Jace sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "As if this place wasn't already stressful enough. What's the protocol for this?" Rick shrugged. "Avoid her, I guess. Pray she doesn't single you out." Jace shot him a glare. Comforting. Returning to his console, Jace tried to shake off the conversation. It was just another day aboard an intergalactic cargo station. People here loved their rumors, and he had work to do. But as he worked, he couldn't help but feel a growing unease in the air. The faint, spicy sweet scent in the atmosphere wasn't part of the usual engine coolant mix. Before he could dwell on it, his comm unit beeped. Jace glanced at the screen and felt his stomach drop. Summons, Colintra XYSRA, office. Immediate, his fingers froze over the keys. For a moment, he considered pretending he hadn't seen it, but ignoring a direct order from her wasn't exactly a career-building move. With a resigned sigh, Jace stood, straightened his uniform, and muttered under his breath, "Just my luck." The corridors leading to her office felt longer than usual. The station's hum now felt like an anxious drumbeat in his chest. The scent in the air thickened as he neared Colintra's door, making it harder to think, harder to breathe. He stopped in front of her office. The glowing panel at the side indicating she was waiting. Jace swallowed hard, steeling himself for whatever was inside. The door slid open, and the storm began. The door slid shut behind Jace with a soft hiss, trapping him in the charged atmosphere of Colintra XYSRA's office. The room was dimly lit, the air thick with an unfamiliar scent that clung to his senses, making it hard to focus. He immediately felt it, something more than just the usual tension. The air crackled with energy, like standing too close to a high-voltage wire. Colintra was pacing behind her desk, her tall, angular form casting long shadows in the flickering light. Her usually pristine appearance was disheveled, dark hair pulled loose from its usual braid. Eyes glowing a sharper shade of emerald. Jace's heart quickened as he realized this wasn't going to be a routine meeting. "Cartwright," she snapped, her voice sharp and commanding, though it wavered slightly. "Sit." Jace didn't argue. He slipped into the chair across from her, trying to avoid the predatory gleam in her eyes. She was pacing like a caged animal, her claws tapping lightly against the metal floor. The room felt smaller than it should. "You're one of the better engineers on this station," she began, though her tone suggested she was far from focused. "Which means I need you to remain functional." Jace blinked, unsure where this was going. "Functional? Yeah, I'm just here to help, ma'am." He tried to keep his voice steady, though he was hyper-aware of how close she was getting with each pass. Colintra stopped abruptly, leaning over her desk, her intense gaze locking onto his. "There's no need to play coy. I know you've heard about my condition." Her words hung in the air, heavy with implication. Jace shifted in his seat, choosing his next words carefully. "I've heard some things," he admitted, trying to keep it neutral. "But I'm just here to assist with whatever you need, professionally." She straightened, her glowing eyes narrowing. For a moment, Jace thought she might lash out. But instead, she chuckled, a low, unsettling sound. "Professional? Is that what you think this is?" Her gaze dropped to him, lingering in a way that made his skin prickle. Jace felt sweat prickling along his neck, the heat in the room becoming unbearable. "Look, if there's something you need, just tell me. I'm not sure how I can help with this." Kalintra moved around the desk, standing too close, her towering frame casting a shadow over him. "It's simple, Cartwright. During this period, my kind experiences certain urges. And you, human, have caught my attention." Jace's throat went dry. "Caught your attention? In what way?" Her lips curled into a sharp smile. "In a way that's both advantageous and dangerous for you." The implication struck him like a blow. His pulse quickened, but his mind scrambled for a way out. He stood abruptly, forcing some distance between them. "I think I'm better suited to solving mechanical problems, not biological ones." Kalintra's smile widened, but her eyes darkened. "We'll see." The door slid open behind him. Jace didn't need any more encouragement. He bolted, heart pounding, his mind racing. The storm had only just begun. Jace stumbled into the corridor, his heart racing as he put distance between himself and Kalintra's suffocating presence. The buzz of machinery and the chatter of crew members faded into a distant hum, replaced by the chaotic thrum of his thoughts. He leaned against the cold metal wall, trying to process the unsettling encounter. What did she mean by advantageous and dangerous? The question spun in his mind like a restless satellite. "Hey, Jace." Rick's voice echoed from down the hall, breaking his reverie. Jace winced. He didn't want to talk. He needed to think, but Rick was already upon him, an eager grin plastered on his face. "You look like you've seen a ghost. What happened in there?" Jace shook his head, trying to dismiss the encounter. "It's nothing. Just another day at work, right?" Rick wasn't convinced. "You can't fool me. I heard she's in her mating period." "Is it true? Did she, enough?" Jace snapped, rubbing his temples in frustration. "I don't want to talk about it." Rick raised his hands in mock surrender. "All right, fine. But you can't just ignore this, man. Everyone's talking. You should be careful." As Rick walked away, Jace felt the weight of the station closing in around him. The walls felt like they were vibrating with tension. A storm brewing just out of sight. He needed to get back to work, to distract himself. The engineering bay was a sanctuary of familiar sounds, the gentle whir of servos, the soft click of tools. He focused on the array of machines and gadgets around him, diving into a troubleshooting session on a malfunctioning power conduit. But even the rhythmic beeping of the diagnostics couldn't drown out the memory of Kalintra's piercing gaze. Minutes turned into hours as Jace immersed himself in his work, but the tension in the air was suffocating. The lights flickered overhead, and the station's core groaned ominously. He paused, glancing up at the dimming lights. That's when he heard it, the soft, melodic chime of an intercom. "Attention crew members," the voice crackled through the speakers. "Due to unforeseen circumstances, all personnel are advised to remain in designated areas. Kalintra XYSRA is currently engaged. Please follow safety protocols." Jace's heart dropped. Engaged? What did that mean for the rest of them? A shiver ran down his spine as he recalled the way she had looked at him, like he was a puzzle piece she needed to fit into her plans. He felt trapped in a web of her design, and the air around him felt electric, charged with something unnameable. Suddenly, the bay's emergency lights flickered on, bathing the room in an eerie red glow. Alarms blared, and a disembodied voice urged, "Evacuate immediately." Evacuate? Panic clawed at Jace's chest as he dashed toward the exit, his instinct screaming for him to run, but as he reached the doorway, he skidded to a halt. Standing before him was Kalintra, her figure framed by the emergency lights, a predatory smile dancing on her lips. Running away, Jace? She purred, her voice dripping with mischief, his breath caught in his throat as the walls began to close in. And he realized, this wasn't just about survival anymore. The storm was upon them, and he was caught in its eye. Kalintra stood before Jace like an unstoppable force, her imposing frame illuminated by the ominous glow of the emergency lights. The alarms continued to blare around them, but in that moment, time felt suspended, every heartbeat echoing like a distant drumroll. Kalintra, we need to evacuate, Jace said, trying to keep his voice steady. This isn't a game. Her laughter echoed through the bay, a low, sultry sound that sent shivers down his spine. Oh, but Jace, it is a game. And you're the most interesting player I've found in ages. She stepped closer, the air thickening with tension and the intoxicating scent that was uniquely hers. Jace's instincts screamed at him to run, yet he found himself rooted in place, captivated and terrified. What do you want from me? He managed, forcing the words out past the knot in his throat, just a little. Cooperation, she replied, her eyes sparkling with a wild light. I'm not asking for much, just a taste of what lies beyond the stars. My kind have their ways, but I've seen the potential in you. Jace felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. What kind of potential? I'm just an engineer. I fix things. I don't, precisely. She interrupted, her enthusiasm palpable. You don't realize what you can achieve when you stop playing it safe. She took another step closer, her presence enveloping him like a tempest. Imagine a union between our kinds, a blending of skills, of power. Jace shook his head, trying to process the enormity of her words. And what if I refuse? The smile vanished from her face, replaced by a glimmer of something darker. You misunderstand, Jace. There's no refusing. This is not merely a proposal, it's a necessity. Your station is in peril. And your cooperation could mean the difference between survival and annihilation. Her gaze pierced through him, a silent challenge igniting his defiance. What makes you think I'd help you? You're not exactly painting a pretty picture. Perhaps not, she conceded, a smirk returning. But think about it. You felt it, too, the shifting energy aboard the station, the impending doom of our current situation. I need you to help harness that energy, to channel it for something greater. Jace felt a swell of anger rise within him. And if I say no? Kalintra leaned in, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Then you and everyone you care about will become collateral damage in a game much larger than either of us can comprehend. I'm not merely asking for your help, I'm offering you a chance to be part of something extraordinary. For a moment, Jace was lost in her eyes, torn between the allure of her proposition and the primal fear thrumming in his chest. The alarms continued to wail, the lights flashing erratically as if reflecting his internal struggle. What if I agree? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. What do I have to do? Kalintra's smile returned, and it felt both intoxicating and predatory. We'll start by harnessing your talents. But understand this, once you step into this realm with me, there's no turning back. The weight of her words hung heavy in the air, and as Jace looked into her determined gaze, he realized he stood on the precipice of a choice that would change everything. The storm was brewing, and he was no longer just a bystander. Jace stood on the edge of a precipice, one foot in the mundane world of engineering and the other in the perilous dance of alien politics. Kalintra's piercing gaze bore into him, her expectations laid bare like a shimmering web. He swallowed hard, feeling the gravity of his decision pulling him down. All right, he finally said, the word escaping his lips like a confession. I'll help you. But I want to know exactly what we're dealing with. Her smile widened, revealing the sharpness of her canines. A wise choice, Jace. Knowledge is power, and we will need every ounce of it. She turned on her heel, gesturing for him to follow. Come, there's no time to waste. The two of them strode through the engineering bay, the emergency lights casting eerie shadows across the cluttered workspace. Kalintra led him to a secure chamber at the back of the station, where advanced technology hummed and pulsed, resonating with energy. The walls were lined with screens displaying complex algorithms and data streams, each flashing with urgent notifications. What is all this? Jace asked, his curiosity piqued. Kalintra leaned over one of the consoles, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. This is the heart of XYSRA station. It houses energy conduits that link to the core. But something has disturbed the balance, forces are at play that threaten to destabilize everything. He studied the data, eyes narrowing as he tried to make sense of the chaos before him. Are you saying someone is sabotaging the station? Not just someone, an entire faction, she replied, her tone low and serious. A group that believes we should not exist alongside humanity. They want to sever our ties, and they will stop at nothing to do so. What do they want? Jace asked, feeling a knot form in his stomach. Control, Kalintra said, her voice a blend of anger and determination. If they succeed, our species will be at war. And you, as my ally, will be the key to stopping them. Jace felt the weight of her words, but a part of him hesitated. And what about the price? You said there would be a cost to this power. Kalintra straightened, her expression shifting from fierce to somber. Every alliance demands sacrifice. You must be prepared to risk everything, your career, your relationships, even your very life. The implications crashed over him like a tidal wave. Jace considered the friends and family he had left behind, the simple life he had taken for granted. I'll do what I can, but if this goes south, I won't be the only one paying the price. Understood, she said, her eyes locking onto his with an intensity that sent a thrill down his spine. Together, we will harness the energy within this station, create a force powerful enough to stand against our enemies. But first, you need to unlock your potential. She stepped back, arms folding, studying him as if he were an unsolved equation. Are you ready to tap into the depths of your abilities, Jace? To embrace what lies beyond the stars? Jace took a deep breath, determination surging through him. Show me. Kalintra nodded, a flicker of approval crossing her features. She gestured toward the console. Initiate the resonance flow. Focus on the energy around you. Feel it, guide it. You're not just human anymore. You're part of something much greater. As Jace approached the console, he felt the hum of power resonating through him, an electric pulse syncing with his heartbeat. He took hold of the controls, determination coursing through his veins, and in that moment, he felt the first stirrings of his new destiny, a journey fraught with danger. But one that might just save them all. The energy surged through Jace like a wildfire, igniting every nerve ending as he settled into the rhythm of the console. The pulsating glow of the interface mirrored the thundering beat of his heart, syncing their energies in a dance as old as time. Kalintra watched him intently, her presence a fierce beacon in the chaotic atmosphere. Good, she encouraged, her voice smooth as silk. Now, channel it. Focus on the core's resonance, let it flow through you. You are more than just a human, you are part of this station, part of its heartbeat. Jace felt the vibration beneath his fingertips, the low hum of power resonating with the force of a distant storm. He closed his eyes, allowing his mind to expand beyond the confines of his body, reaching out to connect with the station's core. He could feel the chaotic currents, the disruptions threatening to tear the fabric of their reality apart. Suddenly, a blaring alarm shattered the moment, its shrill sound echoing through the chamber like a warning cry. Jace jolted back, eyes snapping open as he searched Kalintra's expression. What's happening? He shouted over the cacophony. Breach in Sector 7. She replied, urgency flooding her tone. We're being targeted. They've found us. Jace's heart raced, adrenaline surging through him. We need to mobilize the crew. Secure the station. Kalintra moved swiftly, her fingers dancing over the controls as she activated the communication system. All personnel, report to your stations. Prepare for potential intrusions. The chamber filled with the sound of scrambling feet and frantic voices as crew members poured in, their expressions a mix of confusion and fear. Jace felt the weight of responsibility settle heavily on his shoulders. He had stepped into a role he never anticipated. Stay alert. He called out, trying to project authority as he gathered his thoughts. We're facing a threat from an enemy faction. Kalintra and I will coordinate from here. Kalintra turned to him, her expression fierce. We need to draw them away from the core. It's the heart of the station, and if they breach it, we're finished. Can you manipulate the energy to create a diversion? I'll try, he replied, determination hardening his resolve. He returned to the console, feeling the pulsing energy surging beneath him. It was chaotic but alive, resonating with his own heartbeat. Focus, Jace. Kalintra urged, her voice cutting through the chaos. Feel the power. Use it to create a barrier, a shield that will divert their path. He closed his eyes again, this time sinking deeper into the current of energy flowing through the station. He could feel the energy thrumming, pulsing like a living organism. Drawing from that source, he began to shape it, directing it toward the breach in Sector 7. The air crackled with electricity, and the lights flickered ominously as he forced the energy to manifest. A radiant barrier began to form, shimmering and pulsating with power, stretching across the corridor like an invisible shield. Now! Kalintra shouted, her voice filled with exhilaration. Hold it steady. Just as the barrier solidified, a thundering crash reverberated through the station, followed by the sound of metal clanging against metal. Jace's heart raced as the lights dimmed, and the alarms blared a warning, here they come. He yelled, adrenaline surging through him. From the shadows emerged a group of armed figures, their eyes gleaming with malice. Jace steeled himself, his hands trembling on the console. This was it, the moment he had stepped into this world for. He was no longer just an engineer, he was a defender of his home, standing shoulder to shoulder with Kalintra against the storm that threatened to tear them apart. With a fierce determination in his heart, Jace braced himself for the battle ahead, knowing that the outcome would shape not just his fate, but the fate of the entire station.